This is such a great conversation we're having with Sandy. I love the fact that she goes over everything from very simple, fundamental advice about finances that we really need to know. But she goes into things like when to hire employees as an entrepreneur and how to handle customer service and so many other great advice. So let's enjoy this show.
Welcome to the It's Better Together podcast, where intelligent conversations turn dreams into action, with hosts Marcy Stout and Allison Nissen. Each episode highlights inspirational women and practical business advice from the Rebel Coach Tuesday at 2 live programs. From building a website to securing more clients, we cover topics that are interesting to you.
Well, thank you for having me. I have been in my practice for 20 years, actually just celebrated my 20th anniversary last month, and it makes me think about where I started. So my education from college was a finance and accounting, and actually coming out of college, I was planning to be a CPA. So I moved out west and I lived in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I worked for the mountain, and I was assistant controller there. So while I'm working at the mountain, of course, the perk was lots and lots of ski days. So that was always a great thing. But I was working in the accounting, and I started realizing maybe this is not a great idea for me. The CPA side of it, I enjoyed the number side of it, but I missed the client interaction ongoing. So when I was living in Jackson Hole, I was actually nannying for a family that had a great connection to their financial advisor. And then that's what opened me up to this world. So my husband, Ted, and I moved to Jacksonville from Jackson Hole. And I did tons of research and ended up at Ameriprise because the thing I liked about Ameriprise is I could be a business owner. So I'm a 1099 to them. I run my business the way that I'd like to run it. Of course, they have compliance rules for me, but I can hire and fire and pick my staff, and I can pick where I want my office to be and make some of these decisions that business owners are making. And that's how I ended up at Ameriprise and in Jacksonville.
I love it. So I don't know if you know this, but our brother is in finances as well. And I'm always fascinated by women and men that are in finance. And when you have the market kind of going crazy, especially like how it is now, how you can kind of stay calm and not stressed, like knowing you're responsible for, your clients and the wealth. And I feel like I've walked with you a few times during those times, and you just have like this, this great perspective of how you're handling it with your customers. Can you just give us a little insight on, I'll give us an area. So you wake up one morning and everything's just kind of going down. What's your approach to handling that?
Well, I think it goes back to the relationship that you have with your clients. And when you've been working with clients, some of them I've been with 20 years now, and you know them as a person, and also how they their values towards their finances and their dollars that they're saving. And it's an ongoing relationship. So I'm talking to them when things are really good, and I'm talking to them when things are really bad. So my thought is that when things are volatile, that's the most important time for you to reach out to your clients. And that's, of course, not only my business, but many businesses. So when the market is up, let's just take March of last year when the bottom is falling out, there's a lot of hand holding. But I feel like that's when I am the biggest asset to my clients, and they appreciate me talking to them and working with them through the situation. For example, I had a client in March. She was blowing me up on text messages, which was fine. She literally, March the 22nd, she was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is just making me so nervous. She's a widow, so it's only her income, her retirement savings. And I was like, we just can't do this now. We have to hold on. And I was with her recently, and we looked back at those text messages. March the 23rd was the worst day, the bottom of the pandemic. So, she's so thankful now that I was like, we just have to hang on. And so it's really just having the education with them and being there for them. And I think so many people, especially in my industry, me being in a male-dominated industry, I see that as an asset because I really enjoy my time with my clients. But I was helping her understand, why is this happening? And it's more about the education than the market's down and we need to jump. And really, when the market is going down, I tend to get more clients because a lot of other advisors are hiding under their desk and not reaching out to their clients. And that's when you're needed. When it's going well, everybody thinks it's easy. So it's those times that I feel like you really develop your long-term relationships.
That's great. And Sandy, last week you were a guest speaker on one of our other platforms, and you were sharing some details about men and women in finance and performance. And a lot of us, myself, there was a paradigm I thought more men would be in the financial world and, kind of leading the success chart. But can you just tell us a little bit about the perspective that research showing about women in finance?
Well, there's a couple different things, and actually I'll tag onto that with a story of how my practice is focused on busy, successful women. But that is not always just a female. She may be the breadwinner within her family. And that's how my practice is structured. And I really decided, when I was in the industry, probably 2 or 3 years, I was buying my first car, and I was sitting at the Honda dealership with Ted. And we're sitting here talking to this gentleman, and he's having the whole conversation is focused to Ted. Well, I was so frustrated coming out of this meeting because I was the one that was buying the car, and I was buying the car for me. So why are you talking to him? I was so annoyed, but I left that, and it was such a turnaround point for me, because it said, you know what, women, they're not being focused on, and that's who I need to be working with. And then of course it's easy because we have the relationship, being two females. So that was really the starting point of where, like, I want to focus my practice on women. And women I see like to work with women because they're not intimidated. They're not afraid to ask the question that maybe they think they should know, but they probably shouldn't. They just wouldn't ask it if they were working with someone else.
Have you ever felt like an imposter?
I think the imposter question takes me back to my first 5 years. To when I'm 27 years old, I'm meeting with all these men in Jacksonville, and I am telling them that they need to let me plan for their retirement and handle all their millions of dollars. So, I didn't want to feel like an imposter, but I did feel like I had to. I remember we used to have the saying, like, fake it until you make it. Like, you had to convince them that you're so successful, and you cannot be nervous, because why should they trust you if you're nervous with what you're telling them? I really tried to use my age as a benefit at that point, because I was thinking of, I'm not going to retire with you. So if you're 60 years old and you're retiring in the next 10 years, I'm going to help you retire. Compared to if you're working with someone who's the same age as you, they should be retiring at the same age as you. So I use that as a point that my age wasn't an issue. But I do remember thinking, like, my first 5 years, I can't wait until I can say I've been doing this for 5 years. I felt like I was like seasoned at that point. Before then, I was all buttoned up in my formal suits and trying to make my 30-year-old look like I was 40. And now I'm 47, trying to look like I'm 27, but that's okay.
That's so good. Well, I'd love to ask, if your 47-year-old self would give advice to your 27-year-old self, what advice would you give her if she's starting her business?
I would tell myself to take the risk. I think sometimes we play it safe and we play it conservative, and that, maybe you should take that risk, that it is going to work out, because it's hard to see where you're going to be. I normally say dealing with clients that you can see within the next 3 years. And what does that 3 years look like? Like, are your kids going to be in college? Are they going to be in high school? Where are you going to be? You kind of know in 3 years. But when you start thinking 20, it seems like a really long time. But I would say take the risk. And also I would say that, not every client is a good fit. And I think when you're starting out, you're like, oh, I really need this client because I need one this week or this month or whatever your goals are. And sometimes saying no is okay. Maybe that client that you didn't enjoy is not where you should be spending your time.
So Sandy, let's talk about where you should spend your time. So you're in a sales position. And not only are you helping someone plan for their retirement or college education for their children and all these exciting things, but you do have to do some sales. And so can you give me some advice of how you might approach that? Because to me, sales is like the big monster in the room that I'd really rather run from.
So first of all, I don't think of it as sales. So, there's a couple things that I think of when you say sales. So for me, when you're talking to a client, or when you're to a prospect would be what I would call it. So this could be in any industry, right? So when you're talking to a prospect, the thing that you have to remember is if you're talking, you're losing. So I really need to ask the questions to this prospect of why they need me, not for why I want them. So I really go about it of, tell me what you're looking for and can I help you with this, so that you get the prospect talking, and then they're buying into why that you can help them. So that's one thing that I do. And then the sales thing too is if I'm educating a client on, something they should be doing, I treat it more as education. So I'm not trying to sell them on a certain thing. I really say, here's our options. You can do this or you can do this, and give them the pros and cons, and then let them make the decision. I think that comes across better because you're not necessarily selling, you're educating them, and they understand a choice that they're making, versus someone pushing a product on them. I don't want to work with a client and then them later have buyer's remorse. That's not good.
Exactly.
I feel like it goes back to your overall approach of, if you're going to work with a client for the long time, there is an education component of like educating what March looks like last year, and we're going down. So now's not the time to sell. So if you begin that relationship in your first call, they kind of know that's who you'll be when you're serving them. So it's such a good approach.
Thank you.
Do you ever feel like, as you're educating people, like, do you have a lot of times that you feel like you're spending too much time on the free advice and giving that versus adding new clients, or is that at this stage of your business not as much of a factor?
It's not as much as a factor at this point in my practice. And the other thing too is the structure that I have right now is I have staff under me. So if it's somebody who, you really want to help, because I often say, getting the right client is harder than getting a client. It's easy to get a client who is up to their eyeballs in debt and they want you to tell them how to get out. Well, that's not an ideal client for me. But they're the ones that want your help. So, if it's a child of a great client of mine that they want you to help them with an IRA, or maybe they have gotten into credit card debt, how do you help them with that? That's something that I have someone on my team help them with, so that they're being taken care of. And, my thing is I am in this career to help people. So I'm probably too generous with my time. But I just feel like what you sow, it continues to grow. So if I may help that client, and you never know what's going to happen. They may win the lottery next week and you didn't think they were a great client, but they may be, or, their great aunt that they never knew may pass away and they may inherit money and they're who you think of. So you have to keep the door open, because you don't know what's going to happen in their situation, and they will think of you.
And do you have any techniques, with your, say you're going to go out there and you're going to try and find the ideal client? Do you have any ways or tricks to kind of help other entrepreneurs figure out how to get either referrals or just to kind of differentiate yourself?
There's a couple things with referrals. If you're going to ask for referrals and let's say you're with a couple, you all may know this, but women are 75% more likely to give you a referral than a male. So what's that?
Angie's List.
Yes, exactly. So women are more likely to give you the referrals. So when you're asking a question, I tend to, of course, you're listening through the meeting at the things they're doing, but maybe they mentioned, they just went and played tennis with a friend, or they are meeting up with their sister. So I tend to ask for the referral being very specific. And I like to meet people in a very non-threatening position. I don't want them to be concerned, oh my gosh, this financial advisor is going to call me and she's going to blow my phone up until I answer, and this is going to be terrible. That's not what I do. I normally say, if your sister's in town, let's go grab coffee and just get to meet them as a person. And they may not become a client now, but they may later. So that's one thing, is I just keep the dialogue going. And then the other thing is I'm very specific in what I'm asking for. And I say this often, I've shared this with you before, Marcy and Allison, is if you say the word somebody or anybody, it equals nobody. So you can't say, do you know somebody who needs a financial advisor? That's terrible. So if I said, do you have a neighbor that's changing jobs? So what you're trying to do is narrow their scope so that they're thinking specifically of someone instead of anybody, because anybody is too much of a blur. And then you have to let your clients know that you're open for referrals. And I know this is something that, in the world that we live in, the busyness tends to be a good thing, that, oh, you're busy, you're successful, that's going really well. But you have to be careful of what you're saying, because if you tell your clients how busy you are, they may think a referral is a burden. So you don't want to present yourself as, I don't really want any more referrals, I'm so busy. So, I'm careful with using those words and ask for the referral. A lot of people think it's obvious of, well, of course I know I want referrals. I want to build my business. But if you were just telling them how busy you are, maybe not. So I do things to let them know that I am looking for referrals and that I want to grow my practice. And if you pick your best clients, their friends are often like them. So then that's who your dynamic is for the referral. And I do just a little bit of marketing around the referrals. I do send like Tiffany wine glasses for referrals, and my female clients love it. They're like, can you just send me that blue box? It can be empty. It's beautiful.
So good. It's like knowing your clients, knowing what they'd love, that just that softness of the bow.
That's right.
How about social media? So I see you do a great job with like LinkedIn and getting articles and that. Do you have like a time management approach with social media, or kind of what your goals are as you're growing your business that way?
Yes. Well, social media, I feel like Allison and Marcy, that you guys have helped me with social media too. And that's something that I'm always looking to grow, because I do think the presence of social media is so important. So in my industry, I'm not going to get a referral from somebody Googling financial advisor in Jacksonville and my name pops up. The chances of you getting a referral in my industry like that are very, very, very thin, very slim. So mine is going to come from a friend or a family member. So my point with social media is they just need to be able to find me. So if someone said, you know what, if you're looking to take care of that account, I have the perfect person, they give them my name, the first thing they're going to do is search my name. So you just want to keep the topics relevant. And, it's a fine line between overdoing and underdoing it. And that changes, I think. So that's how I handle that.
I love the answers that you're giving us, because it puts concrete messaging and methods with how you move your business forward. Now, as we, are all trying to grow businesses, it's really important that we connect with our target audience, that we also know how to find our target audience, and that we have realistic expectations on how to reach them and meet with them. And I really do appreciate the comments that you've been giving us, because I've been taking some notes of maybe ways I could personally change my own language and the stories I tell myself, because, our own limiting thoughts are the ones that tend to hold us back the most. But what do you see for the next 5 years for you?
5 years. It's exciting. I'm at a point in my career to where I feel like I have a really great team behind me. I just brought on a new paraplanner, and I'm trying to get him up and running. But I really see myself, my practice continuing to grow. Let me back up. Before I say grow, let me tell you a little bit about the setup right now. So I am the partner, and then I have an associate financial advisor that's under me. She's been with me 2 years. And then I have an office manager who's been with me 9 years. And then I have a new paraplanner that I just brought on. And a normal week for me is I'm in the office Monday through Friday. And I actually am in an office right now, so that's hard to believe. But I feel very fortunate that I can come to work right now. I can come here in the COVID world and see no one if I choose, which is fine. And then on Wednesdays is a flex day for me. So I may be in the office, or I may be home. I may do phone calls, or I may just do emails. But I've always set my schedule up around my kids' schedule. So, one of the things I've really enjoyed about this career, enjoyed about being an entrepreneur is, if it's President's Day, I've marked that day off. My calendar's marked off for the rest of the school year so that it matches, so they match. And my children are a priority, so I, prefer not to work on the days that they're off. So that allows me to be able to help them. So where I see this going in 5 years is I hope that the people under me, that their practices grow. So right now, that's where I'm spending a lot of my time, is my practice growing, but helping them grow, which also helps me. So in 5 years, I hope my practices, I have more assets under management and have more great clients and have deeper relationships than I have right now. But I also hope that I'm leading a team under me. And I would actually say that's the hard part for me. I'm not an HR person. I could not do that. I would be in like rashes all the time, like running and hiring and firing. So really working to develop the team underneath me so that they can prosper and that we're all growing this business together. That's where I see it in 5 years. And hopefully that's all evolving and I'm working less. And then at some point I would love for my kids to be part of this, but we'll see. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
So Sandy, let's talk with hiring. So as entrepreneurs, one of the things that people do when everything's on your own dime, it's always hard to know, like, when do I hire, say, a virtual assistant, or when do I hire another, like a secondary person? Can you tell us your philosophy on, from your perspective, how do you know when it's time to grow your team with an actual employee versus just outsourcing?
Well, I think that actually goes back to the question earlier when you said what's something you would tell your younger self. And I think it goes with taking the risk. I think sometimes we get to the point to where it's a risk of a new employee, and then you have new office space, and then you have new technology, computers, and all these things. And that's where we see that going. But if you're not investing in your staff and in your team, then it's actually a drag on you. So what I try to do is I have my time very segmented as to what I spend my time doing. And I know, like, if I'm doing something, is this actually what I should be doing, or is this what someone else should be doing? So I'm thinking of, am I doing, and some people even break it down to like an hourly position. Like, I know what my hourly rate is, I know what my AFA's hourly rate is, and then my office staff. So if you think, if I'm literally sending a clerical email, who needs to be doing that? Probably not me. So I have a role that I need to be doing so that my business can do well. So I need to be doing what I'm responsible for, and then the other team members do what they're responsible for. So bringing on new staff is so hard. I don't know that I have the answer for that really, but I do know if you're spending time doing the things that you shouldn't be doing, that's when it's time to take the risk and hire. And I think too that sometimes we think too long term, like if I bring this person on, that I can never get out of this. And one of the ways I talk myself through the new person is I've got 90 days to commit to him. And I was open about this. I said, we should have this up and running in 90 days and know if you're a good fit or not. So I felt like I was taking on a risk of a 90-day challenge instead of someone's annual salary for the rest of their life. That seems a little overwhelming. But for 90 days, I can do it. And then at the end, you'll know, what was this the right? So it also, if you're thinking of hiring staff, it's often the right time. I mean, if you ask any entrepreneur, there's probably no one that would ever say, I hired staff too soon. It's almost always the other way. I hired too late. And when things are starting to drop through the cracks and stuff, that's when you're like, okay, I just can't do all this. I need some help.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way of looking at it. So, well, I love that's different. So I know some people, we've asked that question before, and it's like, when I get to a certain revenue number that I can split. But what I hear from you is like, if I can get some things off my plate, I could grow my assets under management. I could grow my business more. So not doing math based on the current revenue, but doing the math on the potential if you were more focused. And it's just a way of looking at it that I feel, to me, that's so much less stressful.
Right. And because hitting a certain goal, I mean, that's nice, I guess, because, if you get to that goal, then you can afford the support or you're at the point to where you could definitely need it, but that can look a lot of different ways. You know, hitting a certain goal may be a very few clients or maybe a whole lot of clients. So the staff piece is so important, and making sure they're engaged and they're being productive. And, you know, I've gone through it before when I've had everybody track their time and we keep up with what we're doing every 5 minutes. And I've kind of moved away from that. And my philosophy right now is I'm putting trust in you, and I need you to own your role. And if you leave at 3 o'clock, that's okay. But did you own your role? Did you do everything that you were supposed to do, that you feel good about that? And that seems to be more productive for me. And maybe it's my style. I don't enjoy the micromanaging either. Then everyone is more, it's more flexible. And you know what, if I get my work done, I'm being successful, it's nice to leave a little early or do something, go get a haircut. I mean, when do you do that, right?
So, Sandy, we've enjoyed this 30 minutes. I feel like every time we get together, it just feels to me like you can learn so much more. There's the finance business, and then there's how you run the entrepreneur, and then just who you are like as a mom, and just being very present. So I always appreciate your time. I appreciate this time with you. And I want to go back to referrals. So before we close, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, look up Ameriprise Advisor, Sandy Misenheimer.
Sandy Misenheimer.
Your main name. So you want to go there, and then also LinkedIn? Is that
LinkedIn? Yeah. So if you were trying to find me, you could just Google Sandy Misenheimer, Ameriprise Financial, and that I would pop up. Or LinkedIn and Facebook. I do have 2 different accounts for Facebook. I have Sandy Pelot, the mom, and then Sandy Misenheimer, the working. Kind of confusing, but that's the best way.
And then one last time. So if you're looking for a referral, if somebody is in the need of a financial advisor, like, who is your ideal client? So we can kind of think clearly on who a good referral could be.
Okay. My ideal client is a busy, successful female, and maybe she's changing jobs. So she's moving from one company to another company, and she has a lot of decisions to make around those transitions that she may not even be aware of. Decisions that you have to make at that point of when you're changing jobs. That's who I could help. That's who would benefit from working together.
And are the decisions like where to go, or a 401k? What types of decisions?
It's it's a couple different decisions on both sides, right? So the career that you're leaving, you could potentially, pensions are one thing, but that's kind of the way of the past. But that would be decisions if you're in a position where that's available. You have to make decisions on that. Then you also have to make decisions on your retirement accounts. If you have restricted stock options, if you have employee stock purchase plan, all those accounts have to have decisions made around them before you move to the new company. Then also with the new company, you're making those same decisions of what should I be doing? Should I be participating in them? How much do I give to my 401k? Do I give to my Roth? Do I give to my traditional? What percent? So it's very in depth. But my thought is it has to be all goal-based of what's your goal? When are you trying to retire? And then that helps answer the question of what you need to be doing. Too many people just pick a number out of the sky because they don't know, and that just sounds good.
Wow, Sandy, so much for us to think about. I know, one of the questions I would like to bring in at the end here is, what's the difference between, should you plan as a couple how much you would be saving, or should you be doing it individually? Does that make a difference?
I always encourage a couple. Actually, a little bit of information about couples. The statistics show that a couple that does financial planning together, that their divorce rate is lower. That is interesting. Which the purpose of that is, think about it. They're thinking about their future and they're on the same page. So if I have a client that I'm working with, and it's interesting because it's often the male that will try to do it without the female, and they'll be like, well, I'm the one that makes the decision, so we can just fill her in later. I don't love that. I don't like that. Because to think about it, if you're talking about how you're going to retire and the amount of money that you're going to be living off of, that's a mutual decision. And that's something that also, if you're working towards it together, you want to achieve the goal together. It's not one person's decision.
Again, so many great things to speak about. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, you've been listening to another Tuesday at 2. We are glad you're here. Please join us every week as we have continual conversations with interesting entrepreneurial spirits.
Thank you,
Allison out.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Great to see you.
Bye. I'll see you later.
Bye.
To watch a live Tuesday at 2 program with Revel Coach, visit us at revelcoach.com. Until next time.